What's up, guys? I'm DK, and you're watching Pro Wrestling What If, the series where I look at the different what if scenarios as terms of the world that we call professional wrestling. After spending years as a part of the heel faction Evolution, Batista had organically become one of the top superstars of the entire WWE, winning the Royal Rumble match in 2005 and turning babyface in the process when choosing Triple H as his opponent for WrestleMania 21. Once he became the World Heavyweight Champion and finished feuding with Triple H, he would be drafted to the SmackDown brand as the final pick and bring the championship with him. He would go on to have a feud with the likes of JBL and Eddie Guerrero over his title before having to relinquish it due to injury in January 2006. However, many of us have wondered the past 20 years now of what Batista's career would have been like had he not switched places with John Cena and remained the face of the Raw brand in 2005. So that's going to be the topic of today's video. We're going to be discussing what if Batista didn't get drafted to SmackDown in 2005. And in case you were wondering about John Cena when it comes to this topic, he already has a separate video on the channel that you can check out if you haven't yet. When it comes to this video, I will only be mentioning about the Raw side of things since Batista is on this brand in the timeline. So for those that want to know what JBL would be doing at the Great American Bash at SummerSlam if he's not facing Batista, you will have to tune in to that John Cena episode where I discuss the SmackDown side of things. And if you end up enjoying this video, don't forget to hit that like button, share this to all your friends, subscribe, and press the notification bell for when future episodes get released, and leave a comment down below about today's topic or suggesting a future topic for an episode of Pro Wrestling What If. So the first pay-per-view we're kicking off with is Vengeance, where we would still have Batista defending the World Heavyweight Championship against Triple H inside Hell in a Cell. The 2005 WWE draft was interesting considering it didn't take place across an episode of Raw and SmackDown in the same week. This specific draft spanned across every episode of Raw and SmackDown throughout June 2005. In the real timeline, John Cena was drafted to Raw on June 6th, while Batista was drafted to SmackDown on June 30th, which is how both the WWE and World Heavyweight Championships were defended on Vengeance since the event had taken place on June 26th. So regardless of being drafted to SmackDown or not, Batista would have still defended the World Heavyweight Championship against Triple H inside the Hell in a Cell structure to end their feud. The only difference with Vengeance in this timeline would be that the WWE Championship isn't defended since John Cena is still on the SmackDown brand. So what would Christian and Chris Jericho have done now that they aren't competing for the WWE Championship? I think they would have been placed in the Intercontinental Championship match with Carlito and Shelton Benjamin, perhaps delaying Carlito's title win he had in the real timeline to this event instead of the Raw before, allowing Shelton Benjamin to be protected by not taking the fall while losing the title. Up next would be SummerSlam, where I think Batista would defend the World Heavyweight Championship against Kurt Angle. As mentioned on an episode of Kurt Angle's podcast, The Kurt Angle Show, he had discussed that the reason for him winning at WrestleMania 21 was to go into a title program with Batista over the summer. However, that didn't end up happening considering that although Kurt Angle got drafted to Raw on June 13th, Batista, like I mentioned, got drafted to SmackDown on June 30th, thus canceling a summer program against each other, and Kurt Angle would go on to have a match against Eugene at SummerSlam. Batista and Kurt Angle did have a singles match on the June 20th, 2005 episode of Raw, but it unfortunately ended in a disqualification due to interference from Triple H. Now that Batista doesn't leave Raw in this timeline, we would be able to actually have a proper match at SummerSlam between the two. A match where I think it would have brought out a different side of Batista and might have been one of the best matches of Batista's entire career had that happened. Batista would retain the World Heavyweight Championship, but I'm sure you guys want to know what happens with Chris Jericho now that he's not competing for the World Championship since John Cena is on SmackDown. Chris Jericho's contract had actually ended at the end of July, but signed a short-term extension in order to have the feud with John Cena for SummerSlam. However, I think in this case with Batista on Raw, that Chris Jericho's contract wouldn't have been extended and thus not competing at SummerSlam due to no longer being a part of the WWE. Up next would be Unforgiven, where once again we have Batista defending defending the World Heavyweight Championship against Kurt Angle. In the real timeline, Kurt Angle was already challenging for John Cena's WWE Championship at this event. During this time, also, General Manager Eric Bischoff tried making it his life's mission to get the championship off of John Cena. So I do think that storyline would play over to Batista and the World Heavyweight Championship, as Bischoff would give Angle another shot at the title for Unforgiven, this time allowing Kurt Angle to choose the stipulation for the match, in which he would choose an Iron Man match. A stipulation that works in favor of Kurt Angle due to the stamina he has and would be able to not get exhausted from how long the match would be. Unfortunately, this does mean we would miss out on the Iron Man match between Angle and Michaels that would happen on Raw Homecoming a few weeks later. This would be like the majority of Iron Man matches, where after the time limit is done, it ends up being a tie, leading to a sudden overtime where then Batista would be able to break it and retain the World Heavyweight Championship. For Taboo Tuesday, I think we would have Batista defending the World Heavyweight Championship against Shawn Michaels. Taboo Tuesday, later known as Cyber Sunday, was one of the more unique pay-per-views around this time, as certain matches and stipulations were determined with fan voting. It's honestly something I'm surprised WWE doesn't do today, considering social media has become so much bigger than it was when the event was created the year prior. Just like in the real timeline, Shawn Michaels would be voted by fans to compete in the World Championship match. However, this match is only a singles match, since the triple threat match we ended up getting when John Cena was on the brand doesn't happen due to the Angle-Batista rivalry concluding at Unforgiven in this case. Unfortunately, this match would not have a definitive winner, as we would have members of the SmackDown roster interfere and attack both Batista and Shawn Michaels. WWE had begun building up the Raw vs. SmackDown storyline for Survivor Series at the Raw Homecoming episode on October 3rd, 2005. So even though this match was the main event of the show, it would be used to propel that storyline for the next pay-per-view, which was Survivor Series. Which, of course, that next pay-per-view we're discussing about is Survivor Series, where once again, we would have Shawn Michaels versus Batista for the World Heavyweight Championship. In the real timeline, the world champion from Raw, being John Cena, had defended his title in a separate match, while SmackDown's world champion Batista had competed in the Survivor Series elimination match at the event. So due to the events that took place at Taboo Tuesday, we would be getting a rematch between Shawn Michaels and Batista for the World Heavyweight Championship. Shawn Michaels was a part of Team Raw when it came to the actual Survivor Series match, so he will be replaced by Kurt Angle since he had already feuded with Batista. This match would have Batista retain the World Heavyweight Championship, with the two men shaking hands afterwards. But this won't be the last time Shawn Michaels challenges for the title, especially as we enter 2006. Shoutout goes to Jackson Weingart, Jada Sanchez, Fox Starkiller, Lola Pines, Hayden Saravo, Mr. Randomizer, Harry Dynamite Storm, Skolchin, Spidey Fan Productions 2003, and Wesley Conklin. And the reason that they ended up getting a shoutout is because they joined our YouTube channel membership, which only cost $1.99 a month. Not only do you get the shoutout, but you do get lots of other perks, including early access to every single video and shorts that we produce on this channel. So definitely consider joining our YouTube channel membership. It will be greatly appreciated and will go a long way of helping out this channel a lot. So definitely consider it, but let's get right back to the video. To kick off 2006, we had New Year's Revolution, which we would have an elimination chamber match for the World Heavyweight Championship featuring Carlito, Chris Masters, Kane, Kurt Angle, Shawn Michaels, and the reigning champion Batista. This is the exact match that happened at this event with the same challengers, besides replacing John Cena and the WWE Championship with Batista and the World Heavyweight Championship, resulting in the same result, with Batista in this case retaining the World Heavyweight Championship, last eliminating Carlito, and all of a sudden,
you think you know me.
Edge cashes in his Money in the Bank briefcase after the match and successfully becomes the new World Heavyweight Champion. A moment that also happened in the real timeline, but that was with the WWE Championship. Royal Rumble 2006, we would have Kurt Angle versus Edge for the World Heavyweight Championship. Now you're probably wondering where Batista is, considering when it came to the real timeline, we had John Cena getting his rematch against Edge for the WWE Championship. Batista around this time had relinquished the World Heavyweight Championship due to suffering a torn triceps injury in a match against Mark Henry on a SmackDown house show. That match had coincidentally taken place the same night as New Year's Revolution occurred, which could be very possible that Batista still suffers an injury in this timeline as well, especially working a grueling structure like the Elimination Chamber where you're already at high risk of getting injured. Batista was already dealing with a back injury before the tricep injury, and so with how injury prone he already was, I'm going to stick with the theory that he would be injured and miss WrestleMania 22. Kurt Angle was already in the championship picture when it came to this event, and even as a babyface as well, which would have been interesting to see him in a feud against a heel Edge, especially since the last time they had a singles pay-per-view was when Kurt Angle had his head shaved bald at Judgment Day 2002. Unlike the real timeline with the WWE Championship, Edge would actually retain the World Heavyweight Championship and go into WrestleMania 22 as champion. This does unfortunately mean that we miss out on the hardcore match he had against Mick Foley at the event that also elevated his career. Although Batista is injured in this timeline, I will be still discussing about WrestleMania 22 and what he would have been doing once he returns from injury. And last but not least, WrestleMania 22, where I think Edge defends the World Heavyweight Championship against Rey Mysterio. Rey Mysterio had won the 2006 Royal Rumble match and went on to challenge for the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania 22. Even though he's still a SmackDown superstar like in the real timeline, he'll be going after the opposing brand's title in this timeline. This is due to John Cena being the WWE champion of the SmackDown brand and Vince McMahon not wanting John Cena to drop the title just yet, setting up a match between two superstars who were once tag team champions when they were both on the SmackDown brand. When it comes to Kurt Angle at this event, there are multiple options for him to do besides recreating the triple threat match from the real timeline, but with Edge replacing Randy Orton. First would be to have a rematch of the instant classic between Kurt Angle and Shawn Michaels from the prior year's WrestleMania. However, with Triple H not being able to face John Cena in this timeline, I think he would be a good choice to face Shawn Michaels and take Mr. McMahon's spot. Not only do we have multiple years of history, but this would be a way to have the reformation of D-Generation X after the match happens instead of months later. The other option, and the one I think a lot of us would have liked, being the Dream WrestleMania match between Kurt Angle and Undertaker. A match we ended up getting a month earlier on the SmackDown exclusive pay-per-view No Way Out, but wanted to see it at WrestleMania 22 instead as an inter-promotional bout. Of course, like in the real timeline, Rey Mysterio would walk out of WrestleMania as the new World Heavyweight Champion, thus making the title exclusive to the SmackDown brand. However, shortly after, WWE would do a proper draft for 2006 instead of Kurt Angle and Rob Van Dam going to ECW only. That would have John Cena get drafted to Raw and bring the WWE Championship with him. And while Batista is injured, he will be getting drafted to the SmackDown brand. After all, WWE wanted John Cena to be the face of the company, and it was only a matter of time before he joined the flagship show. Once Batista would return from injury, he would once again set his sights on the World Heavyweight Championship, now a part of the SmackDown brand.